What's the story, everyone? Welcome back to Gaelic Games Fan TV. How are we all getting on? How's the form? How is everyone doing? We're here to review all the weekend's club championship action. Certainly a lot to break down, a lot to discuss as always. Kilmacud Crokes, obviously a memorable victory for them, obviously over RD St. Mary's. Close game, definitely maybe a lot closer than people would have expected. Corofin, obviously big win versus Ballina. Ballygunner getting the job done in the Munster Club Hurling Championship as well. We're reviewing all the action, discussing all the games in detail. We'll be looking at a bit of a club football power rankings as well. Maybe ranking our top 6, top 7 clubs that are left from the All-Ireland Club Senior Football Championship. And see where else the win takes us. So, Seamus, how are you doing, my friend?
Very, very well, Aaron. Thanks for having me on again. Seeing you had a good old trip there to the States, back in Ireland now. It was a good weekend. Good weekend. Obviously, we had the All-Stars as well. That was obviously, always a definite headline generator. And then over the weekend, of course, some brilliant results like Kilmacud and Naas. That's going to be one hell of a lance. The final Ballygunner beating the Piercing now. Like, don't really see anybody stopping them, to be honest, going the whole way. Very, very interesting weekend shaping up the championship.
Absolutely. And yeah, obviously, past few weeks there has been no club championship show. Obviously, as Seamus was saying there, I was away in New York for a week and then had COVID as well, would you believe? So last week when me and Matthew were supposed to do a preview show, my voice was just completely gone. So I couldn't speak. So I don't know if you would want to listen to Matthew for an hour. I don't know, but there we go. So maybe you would, to be fair. Maybe you would. Maybe sick of me at this stage. But there we go. Keane says here, evening lads, Kilmacud were made to work for their win over St. Mary's RD. This game will definitely stand to them. While Corofin v St. Brigid and Connacht promises to be a cracker. Yeah, it's mad to think we're down to 12 clubs now left. Obviously 2 provincial finals, Connacht final and Leinster final, very much done and dusted. And 4 teams left in Munster, 4 teams left in Ulster as well. So it's kind of mad to think, it felt like it was only a couple of weeks ago where there was county finals left, right and centre. And now it's down to 12. And I suppose from, every weekend from now, it's, every game is going to mean so much, really.
Well, that's it. We're they're dropping like flies. We're at this stage where, I remember I was bored in work. This was a couple of weeks ago. I was just started thinking up in my head of a couple of things, and I was like, right, team. I was like, what if you were to make a team out of the clubs that are remaining in the championship? I kind of, typed it down on my notes on my phone. It was a cracking team. You had the likes of Tom O'Sullivan and Paul Gainey there from Dingle, Conor Glass, and people like Emmett Bradley from Glen, Shane Walsh, Paul Mannion, Kilmacud Crokes, and then going back into the side this week and being like, okay, well, half of those lads are knocked out of the championship now. If you Kilcoo boys are in that team, and teams like that are now out of the championship, like people like Rian O'Neill was in it now, Cross McGlenn are obviously gone as well. A lot of teams have dropped out, and it'll be very, very interesting to see who's left after the coming weekend of fixtures. Obviously, the Ulster, semi-finals, they're going to be absolute crackers as well. Be very, very interesting, but I'm very, very interested to see kind of how the rest of this develops. Corofin against St. Brigid's, that promises to be a battle. That really, really does promise to be a battle, because the one thing that was crucial with Corofin in the victory against Ballina is that they surged ahead. They were 4-0 ahead. I think it was after 12 minutes. After 22 minutes, I think they were 8 points to 1 ahead. That won't happen against St. Brigid's. Brigid's won't let them build up a momentum like that. That's why I think it's going to be point for point throughout the entire game. But obviously, we'll get into the full preview, I'm sure, when we touch on those games. But it shaped up really, really well. Looking forward to the rest.
Absolutely. Yeah, Shane says here, Dingle versus Clonmel should be a good game. Also, Mohill was close to cause an upset, says Aaron Brady. Yeah, they were very, very close. I think I tipped them to come through that game and a couple of weeks ago. And look, they weren't a million miles off it. But to be fair to Brigid's, they do have a lot of good players, and we might even touch on them a little bit later. They might be a bit of a dark horse, maybe. Roscommon clubs tend to do very well in the in Connacht and in the last couple of seasons and whatnot. When you think back to Padraig Pearce's St. Brigid's, even the last time They were in the Connacht Club Championship. I'm pretty sure they won it and went all the way and won the All-Ireland. I think that might have been 2013. So they do have a lot of history. In fairness, I suppose we'll start the show off by looking at the Leinster Championship action. And for Kilmacud Crokes, it was definitely, I suppose, maybe a bit more of a test than I suppose people would have assumed. Like, Crokes started very, very strong, as you would expect. Obviously, St. Mary's came back into the game. Shane Walsh again doing the business with 5 points. Dara Dempsey getting a crucial goal. Paul Mannion with 5 points as well. A whole host of different scores for Crokes. But I suppose fair play to St. Mary's. Like, they did make a fist out of it. Like, I suppose when you're looking at Kilmacud Crokes and the firepower and how good of a team that they are, and when you think about how comfortably they beat Ballyboden in the Dublin final a couple of weeks ago, and even against Éire Óg the last time out, you were looking at this and thinking, I suppose it's very easy to fall into the trap. They're playing a loud club, like they should be winning by 9-10 points. But look, fair play to St. Mary's. They did make a bit of a game out of it at the start of the second half.
Yeah, they absolutely did. And we were talking about in the preview, myself and Matthew, we were talking about this game, and we were saying, like, St. Mary's will still be riding on the crest of a wave of what the inter-county team has done. So with Mickey Hart and with the success that the Louth team had, staying in Division 2, making it to a Leinster final, like, they will be confident going into this game that they can pull off a shock. And the reality is that in the second half, they really did put Crokes right up against the fence. Like, they had 1-5 without reply. Ryan Rooney hit the back of the net for them, and they were only 2 points behind on 46 minutes. And this is after Crokes had burst ahead. Like, Mary's RD pulled them right back. So I think they'll hold their heads high. They definitely, did themselves proud in this game. Kilmacud's experience just came to the fore. Like, in the final quarter, when the game was there to be won, Shane Horan, Luke Ward, they got on the score sheet. Crokes powered to victory. Like, I think a crucial thing as well is Craig Diaz was back in the panel for this game. He's crucial because, going into the last few games in the championship, you have sides coming in that are very strong around the middle, particularly Waddy Graham's Glen with Glass and Bradley there in midfield. They need Craig Diaz to come back in. They need him back in there to go toe-to-toe with them. I do agree with the comment that came in from Keane that this game will definitely stand to Kilmacud Crokes, though, because if they had got a walkover in this game, they might have been there to be caught on the hop by Naas in the final. They have been tested, because Ballyboden didn't test them, Éire Óg didn't test them, Mary's tested them, and I think that actually will do them the world of good.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, I mean, if we even take it back further to the Raheny game and how close, how close of a scare that was. Like, I think that game stood to them hugely going into the Dublin final. Like,
they should have lost.
Like,
it's not even a question. Like, Raheny should have beaten them. Like, they were 3 points up with 1 minute to go. Luke Ward scored a goal with basically the last kick of the game to equalise it, and then Sean McMahon had a chance down the other end to kick over a point, and he missed it. He didn't even shoot. He hand passed it off to somebody and it got intercepted. And we were all thinking, why did he not just shoot that? And you felt like Crokes had got out of jail. And of course, then they're going to go on and win the Dublin final because they should have been beaten in the semi-final. But the way they won the final was fantastic. And now that they've been given a good test in this game, you do think, how much harder can Naas hit them than that? We'll see.
Yeah. Like, are they as good as last year, do you think, Kilmacud Crokes, or are they better even?
It's a very good question, because obviously this time last year they didn't have Paul Mannion. Paul Mannion was still nursing an injury. So, and this year, he's hitting 5 points, and 5 points from play that were all gorgeous, like really, really nice points. And so the question is then, are they strong? They don't have Craig Diaz around the middle. As I said, he's back in the panel. Ben Shovlin isn't there. So they've had to go with a pretty much completely new midfield pairing of Brian Sheehy and Mark O'Leary, who I thought did very well against Ballyboden St. Enda's in the Dublin final, but Ballyboden did fold. Theo Clancy for me at fullback is going from strength to strength, and I'll be keeping a very, very close eye on this game coming up against Naas, because you would imagine that he will mark Derek Kieran. You will imagine. And Derek Kieran is a fantastic forward and real inter-county quality. And if Theo Clancy can do a job on him, well, then we know what we already know, in my opinion, which is Theo Clancy is made for that Dublin fullback position. So I'll be keeping a close eye on that game for this reason. on top of the fact that it is obviously the Leinster final. But to say that they're better than they were this time last year, I don't know. I feel like last year I was a lot more confident that it was their time to win. This time they kind of seem like they have a feeling off them that they're more the hunted than the hunters, if that makes sense. Teams
Yeah.
are trying to catch them everywhere they go, whereas last year they were hunting down the title. Does that make any sense?
Yeah, like I feel like teams are, yeah, like I would feel like teams probably did give an extra 5-10% against them last season, to be fair. I just think last year they were just in extraordinary form. Like, even when you look at the likes of Darren Mullen, Craig Diaz, like they were all playing the football of their lives. And obviously Mannion, is come back in now, and look, he's been in phenomenal form. I think Walsh is, I suppose, the more games he's got for Crokes in the past like couple of months, the better he's getting. Like, when you look at it from the county final onwards, I think he's been outstanding, really.
But the other
And
thing is as well,
yeah,
Aaron, is like the minute he comes in, he just changes the game, even if he doesn't necessarily do too much himself.
yeah.
So in the
He,
Raheny game, when the
he
game
just has
was
that
tight,
ability. He has that ability to do something out of nowhere.
but that's it. Like you saw the goal he got against Bowden was ridiculously good.
Hmm.
The other thing as well that you notice when you're at the games is when he's on, people just go to him. Anytime he gets the ball, 2 or 3 lads are immediately sucked in to try and tackle Shane Walsh, and other things open up. He has a fear factor. Whenever he gets the ball, people are like, we better double up on Shane Walsh here, and that leaves somebody else free. So even if he's not doing much, when he strikes decisively, but then he also lays on chances for other people.
Yeah, like, and to be fair to Kilmacud Crokes, like they have played good teams as well. Like, even against RD, like I probably wasn't too familiar really with RD before watching the game, but when you're watching the game and you're seeing some of the players that they have, Darren McConnon, Kieran Keenan, Tom and Liam Jackson, like all inter-county players for Louth. And as you said, Louth had a very good season. Obviously, just gone, like finished third in Division 2. Like, that's a good spine to their players. I know Darren McConnon's a young enough player and he doesn't always start for the Louth inter-county team, but like that's like that they are like that is a good team, to be fair. Like, so, and it's like it shouldn't really maybe have been that big of a surprise when you actually look at it.
It's just because people put Crokes up so highly, and
Mm.
probably the one game that everybody would have tuned into from outside Dublin in the Dublin Championship would have been the Dublin final. So they haven't seen the game against Skerry's Harps where Skerry's pushed them all the way. They haven't seen the game against Raheny where Raheny should have beaten them. The only game that people saw of Crokes was them annihilate Ballygunner in the final. So it seemed like Crokes was just business as usual. But in the group stages, they didn't look as convincing as they did in Dublin last year. They just won the final a lot more convincingly than they did last year. And that's the game that everybody paid attention to. So it seems like maybe are they better than last year? I think it's really hard to know. I think what is definitely going on, whether they'll admit it or not, is they are trying to peak at the right time. They're trying to peak at the right moment. I think they're trying to get Shane Walsh, Paul Mannion, Darren Mullen all 100% fit to the Final Four. I think they won't want to lose anybody to an injury at this stage.
Yeah, I think so. Indeed. But yeah, it was a great result for them in the end. Definitely a tough test, and I suppose, as some of the commenters were saying earlier, and yourself, it will definitely stand to them. Obviously, going into the final, and it will be familiar opponents in the final. They've obviously played Naas in the last 2 seasons. I think they played them in the quarterfinals last season. The final, I think, the season before that. But they came through St. Lomans 115 to 110. You would hear that scoreline and you would think maybe it was comfortable enough for Naas, but that definitely wasn't the case. It did go to extra time. Really could have went either way going down the stretch. But Dara Kirwan, 1-7, and a goal and 6 points of that 1-7 was from play. Extraordinary performance from him again. And I suppose Naas, to be fair, like it'd be easy when you see how good Crokes are for Naas maybe to switch off or maybe to lose a bit of heart. But here they are back again, and I suppose you would have to say, like, Crokes are, without doubt, obviously the number one side in Leinster, but Naas, you would have to say, are number 2.
Yeah, no, definitely. I think it is fitting that it has ended as being Naas against them in the final because, I mean, pretty much all of us were saying if any team in Leinster can stop Kilmacud Crokes, it is Naas. So the fact that it's them against them in the final is fitting because we're going to see who the top dogs are in Leinster this season, in my opinion. So look, extra time, and I think it was a very, very tight game throughout. The thing that needs to be said here is St. Lomans have a ridiculous amount of Westmeath players in this side. And not just any players, but who. Like, they've John Heslin, they've Ronan O'Toole, they've Sam McCartan. Like, a serious backbone of that Westmeath team is in this Lomans team. So that's a really, really difficult day out. Lomans got their goal from Shane Dempsey, finished 12 points to 1-9 in normal time. Derek Irwin, as you said, 1-7. Absolutely stunning. He hit that goal 2 minutes into extra time. Naas powered on from there. They did a 3-point advantage at the break, pushed on to win the game by 5. And like, this is why I'm looking forward to the Theo Clancy Derek Irwin matchup so much, because Derek Irwin is clearly in red hot form, and in Croke Park, the matchup between them two could be a good one to look at.
Absolutely, yeah. Like, and yeah, no, like, and look, I remember being at that game last year, and Kilmacud Crokes won the game fairly comfortably in the end. It was sort of the game was actually a bit of a letdown in some ways. But yeah, as you said there with Naas, like they have an array of players from Alex Byrne to Derek Kirwan, as you said before. Still have Eamon Callaghan knocking about as well. Like, they've tremendous amount of depth all over their team. And
but then even that's the other thing, that's the good thing to point out, is that they're a good team, which is vital going into play against Kilmacud Crokes, because like Ballyboden had the individuals, they had the Baskells, they had Warren Egan, didn't work against Crokes. And if you were to look at Naas and their run to the final, they've played against a couple of teams that on paper have better individuals than them. Like, when they play against Selbridge in the final, Selbridge had the likes of Paddy Brophy, Mick O'Grady, that like on paper, if you were to look at it, you'd be a bit like, Selbridge kind of looked like they had the better team. But Naas had the better team. They had the better 15 lads pulling in the one direction. And if you're again to do the same trick with St. Lomans have the more household names than Naas, but Naas are the better team overall. And that's crucial going into this game against Kilmacud Crokes, because if you're relying on one or two individuals, it won't work against Crokes. And yeah, so I think Naas will put up a better fight than they did last year. Like, players like Owen Doyle, the experience he has, it's crucial. He does an amazing job, but he'll probably pick up Shane Walsh. We'll be very interested to see.
Yeah, would you give Naas much of a chance going into that final? Is there because when you do look at it, Raheny, I suppose they nearly did pull off the upset. St. Mary's have given them a test, as you mentioned, through the group stages. Crokes didn't look great. I know it's in Croke Park, and that's probably the tough one, really. But like, do they have a chance?
You can never write off anyone, but I can't see Kilmacud losing. I mean, it's just the honest truth. I cannot see Kilmacud losing that game. I would be stunned if Naas win. It's just, yeah, it's not because I don't think Naas are good. I think they're an outstanding club team, and to win 3 in a row in Kildare is phenomenal. It hasn't been done in such a long time. But Crokes are very, very strong. They're too strong. And I think Walsh, Mannion, Darren Mullen, Shane Cunningham, they're all hitting form at the right time. And if Craig Diaz is back in the team, I know he's back in the panel for the last game, but if he's back in the team, that's a massive, massive boost to them. And Brian Sheehy has been under the radar brilliant in the games that he's been called in for too.
Yeah, Daniel says, I really think Niamh Cunnell and Glenn could be really cagey. Yeah, you would have to imagine so. When you look at both of these two sides and some of the games that they've been involved in so far this year, it definitely has the potential to be low scoring, especially with weather conditions at this time of the year as well. Porrick says Corofin will win All-Ireland again, because once they get out of Galway, they're never bet. They're miles better than Kilmacud, more experienced. It's an interesting point. I mean, Corofin, the last, I think, 3-4 times they've gotten out of Galway, they have gone on to win the All-Ireland. Now, it has been a while, and I suppose the important point to remember is that they haven't got out of Galway in the last couple of seasons. Do you know, that way? Like, so, but I mean, to be fair, they're coming in and I suppose a great run of form, and I suppose that obviously does take us on to their game against Ballina at the weekend. It was 16 points to 12. Corofin obviously starting the better. Ballina made a bit of a game out of it, but in the end, Corofin were fairly comfortable, 16 points to 12. And yeah, after winning the Galway Championship, Corofin are doing what Corofin do, and you would look at them and think, especially with obviously they have to get through St. Bridget's first, and that will be a tough game. But I definitely don't think you can write off St. Bridget's by any stretch of the imagination. But they will, if they, provided they do come through Connacht, they will avoid the Leinster champions and the Ulster champions in a semi-final. So it is setting up nicely for Corofin to potentially maybe, we talked about the Dublin inter-county side maybe as a bit of a last dance this year. Maybe we could see something similar with Corofin. I know they do have a lot of younger players in their team now, but in terms of the older lads, they're maybe setting themselves up for a bit of a one last push out of here.
Well, that's it. You look at the likes of Gary Sice, Mike Farrer, and Michael Lundy, that have been around the block with Corofin and have all the medals and trophies to show for it. And I think they're right up there as the greatest club team of all time. I probably would say Crossmaglen, probably number one for me, greatest club football team of all time. But Corofin, definitely second. Just an amazing achievement what they did in the late 2010s. And that is a good point that Porrick makes, that now it's once they beat Moycullen, all of a sudden it opened up for them, didn't it? All of a sudden you're like, okay, they'll probably beat Ballina. Okay, they'll probably win Connacht. Okay, now that they're away from Ulster and Leinster, who's coming out of Munster? Oh, Corofin might make the final. And then all of a sudden they're one game away from winning it again, which would be a remarkable story, because at the start of the year, I don't think anybody was really looking at them and saying Corofin will win here. I personally thought that their time had passed. I genuinely did think that their time had passed. I thought that the core of that group are past their sell-by date. And I didn't mean that in no disrespect. It's just time's undefeated. They Kilmacud Crokes now are the team to beat. Waddy Graham's Glen are probably, itching for that revenge. But all of a sudden, they're on both sides of the draw and there's a route there to the final. So you'd be a brave man to bet against them. And in this game, at stages, they were devastating. And here's the one key stat from this game against Ballina. They never trailed in this game. They got ahead and they never let Ballina get ahead of them from that point on. They were 4-0 ahead after 12 minutes. After 22 minutes, they were 8-1 ahead. They never let Ballina get ahead of them. Even though Ballina fought back, scores in the second half, Michael Lundy, Jack McCabe, they always stayed in front of them. And that's why I tipped them to beat Brigid in the final as well.
Yeah, from looking at them, do you think they've still got that, I suppose, obviously they've still got that winning mentality and everything else that I'm sure has been ingrained into them, obviously from when they won the All-Ireland a couple of years ago. But from looking at them and everything else, and obviously seeing them against Moycullen, do you think Corofin, even with some of the changes, you look at Martin Farragher, obviously not always starting now, coming off the bench, Michael Lundy the same, Gary Sice has obviously got on a bit. They do have some other younger lads who've come in, like Jack McCabe, and a few others have sort of made the breakthrough in the last few years as well. Are Corofin still there? They have to be taken seriously now at this point.
They have to be taken seriously, no question about it. But I always say that a team is never the team that it was last year. Every team is different. Every year is different. This is the Corofin now. It's not the Corofin of 2020, because the Corofin of 2021 wasn't good enough to win it. The Corofin of 2022 wasn't good enough to win it. And the Corofin last year wasn't good enough to win it. So this is the Corofin of 2023/2024. And this is what we have in front of us. Looking at that 15, right now, I would still lean towards Kilmacud or Waddy Graham's Glen to beat them in a final, or Scottstown to beat them in a final. With no disrespect at all. I just think that those sides are in their peak, and I think Corofin are in that kind of tough position where they have a lot of lads who are entering the twilight of their career and a lot of lads are at the beginning of their career, and not a lot of key players who are kind of somewhere in the middle. So it's a difficult one to kind of put where exactly I think that they are, but they're a very, very good side. And I actually do think, if you're to press them at this moment, I do think that they will be in that All-Ireland final against Kilmacud Crokes or Waddy Graham's Glen. I know I'm running way ahead, but I do think that will be the final. And then, they're one game away. All they have to do is prove me wrong once. So that's it. But I definitely would say they're a solid contender. I don't think that they're as good as they were when they were winning all those titles, but I still think that they're a threat. And Dahi Burke being back in the panel, that's another boost in itself.
Yeah, and I do like their manager as well, Kevin Johnson, I think is his name. Like, he obviously won multiple titles, obviously, with Turle Strand, young up-and-coming manager. Like, I've heard a lot of good things about him, and I do remember watching Corofin last year when they lost to, I think it was Mount Ballygunner in the semi-finals of the Galway Championship, and I thought they played very well. I thought they were very unlucky not to win that game. So it's not at all surprising, really, to see, I suppose, how good they have looked this year. They'll be playing St. Brigid's in the final. They beat Mohill 1-7 to 8 points. I wasn't watching the game, but keeping an eye on Scorpio, and it seemed very, very close throughout. Kieran Segru obviously gets a big goal for St. Brigid's. Ben O'Carroll, I suppose, notable name on the score sheet. Ronan Stack as well. Keith Byrne for Mohill, he scored 4 points. But Aaron says here St. Brigid's looked off par yesterday, but look, they got the job done. And to be fair to Mohill, when they do have some of the players that they have, like, I suppose you should give some respect to Mohill at the same time. Like, it's, it was never always going to be straightforward, but look, Bridget's got the job done, and that's the most important thing.
Well, that's it. Like, a semi-final is there to be won, like as the saying goes, and Bridget's got the job done. I was the same as yourself. I didn't get a chance to actually see this game. I was keeping up with it. I was keeping up with the tweets, keeping up with the Scorpio app and everything like that. Look, from the looks of things, Mohill definitely pushed them late. Like, they rallied late. They had scores from Keith Byrne, Conor Quinn and Ronan Kennedy. So a 3 in a row reduced the gap down to 2 points, and they did make Brigid sweat for this victory. Sergiu's goal, Bobby Newton's third point, that had originally put Brigid's 1-7 to 5 points ahead with 6 minutes left. So Brigid's were in a comfortable position, and Mohill reeled them right back in towards the death. But as you said, this is a semi-final. This is a game that you just got to win it. You just got to win it and get into the final, and then, deal with how you got there later on. But you're in the final now. You're up against Corofin. Nothing else matters. How you got there, how impressive you looked, none of that matters. What matters now is you've made it to the dance. You've made it to the showpiece. And, that's a once-off game. Go there, give it everything you got. And I think Brigid's cannot be underestimated by Corofin. As you said, they have the likes of the Stacks. They have Ben O'Carroll. Like, they're a solid team. And they also have revenge on their mind, because the last time Brigid's got to a Connacht final, they were beaten by Corofin. That was in 2016. And that was just before Corofin went on to do all that they did. So there's motivation there for St. Brigid's to beat Corofin. And one thing that I'll hold my hands up, I've completely let it slip. Did Brian Stack play this game? Because he got injured in the game against Kildare Strandhill. Do you know if he took part in this game?
I've actually no idea. Haven't a clue. Maybe the viewers can let us know. I'll have a look actually and see. Yeah.
Because I know he got injured against Kildare, and he's crucial. Because I actually think Brian Stack is one of the best defenders in the country, let alone the left in the club championship. So, like, you'd imagine he might pick up a Gary Sice or something, and if Stack is available, that's massive.
Yeah, just looking at it here, don't think he came on the 60th minute. Just looking at a match report there. So yeah, so there we go. Aaron says Brian Stack did play yesterday. So yeah, that could be huge as well if he is back in time. And yeah, as we were saying, like, I definitely don't think anyone should sleep on St. Brigid's at the same time. Like, as we've said before, Roscommon teams or Roscommon club teams always seem to be tough to beat. Like, Roscommon club teams, I would be more confident in a Roscommon club team beating a Galway club team than a Mayo club team. You get me? Like, with the standard of Roscommon club football at the minute. So you certainly can't sleep on St. Brigid's. And even with Ben O'Carroll in there, if Brian Stack is back, like, good couple of players in there. And, like, it certainly wouldn't be I don't think Corofin will have it as handy as they did against Ballina anyways.
Well, that's it. And, like, Ballina kind of, after the Brafey game, look, Ballina got a bit of a bad rep for that Brafey game because of how terrible that Brafey game was. Like 6 points to 4, one of the worst games of Gaelic football you could see. And from that point on, it was kind of a losing battle for Ballina, even the way that they beat Fulham Irish. They were never going to get a lot of plaudits for that, and now they're out of the championship. So Corofin won't have gone up in people's estimations for beating Ballina because of the position that Ballina were in after that final against Brafey. But they'll get their flowers if they beat Brigid's in this final, because this is going to be one hell of a contest. Brigid's are going to make this an absolute battle. Corofin will have to be they'll have to be game for a war, no question about it. And the one thing that Luke was saying on our pod just about an hour ago, he was saying Corofin don't get enough credit for how good they actually are at the back. Like Dylan McHugh, Kieran Malloy, Liam Silk. I know Kieran Malloy has had his injury problems, but when they're at full strength in their defence, they're really, really difficult to score against. And like that's crucial for them going into this game as well. You would imagine that conditions won't exactly be 26 degrees, gorgeous sunshine. So it's going to be quite a difficult game to get scores in. It probably will be low scoring. And I would probably lean to Corofin to get over the line. And then on their way to a final potentially.
Absolutely, yeah. No, I think it's well set up for them. And look, I think with the history of Corofin, I think you like the idea of them coming up against Kilmacud Crokes as well, like in Crow Park. You know, I suppose the ground that Corofin will have a lot of familiarity with as well. I know that a lot of those lads wouldn't have played there. The new lads who've come in, and obviously the experienced lads probably wouldn't have played there in a couple of years as well. In fairness, I suppose what we might do is maybe a bit of a power rankings of some of the clubs that are left in the All-Ireland Club Football Championship before we go on and discuss Ballygunner's win versus the Pershig, and obviously Rory Ogo got a big win in Ulster as well. So I'll just run through some of the clubs that are left. So you've obviously got Rathcormac of Waterford, Castlehaven of Cork, Dingle of Kerry, Clonmel of Tipperary. Obviously all four of them be going up against each other this weekend. There'll be a preview out later in the week. You've got Kilmacud Crokes of Dublin, Naas of Kildare, St. Bridget's of Roscommon, Corofin of Galway. In Ulster, you've got Whitegramesglen of Derry, Neve Connell of Donegal, Tralee of Tyrone, and Scottstown of Monaghan. So I suppose we're both putting Kilmacud Crokes at number one anyway. I think that's fairly unanimous. But Whitegramesglen, to be fair, I mean, considering how close they were last year, coming through Ulster in the way that they have, like a lot of their games have been very low scoring. They haven't really probably had, I would say, as many. I know they face Slaughtneil, and Slaughtneil are obviously always a tough test for Whitegramesglen. I think that was a 2-point victory. I think it was like 1-5-6 a couple of weeks ago or something like that. So I suppose Glen maybe haven't had the same tests that Crokes have had in terms of, or not even that they haven't had the same amount of tests, but they haven't been tested in the same way that Crokes have. They haven't been pushed to the pin of their collar in the same way that Crokes have. So, I mean, that probably stands to Crokes, but this weekend will be a huge answer for Whitegramesglen, because I do think Neve Connell will give them a tough test this weekend.
Yeah, no, I do agree with you. I think they haven't had the same life or death moment that Crokes had. Like when Crokes were coming forward in that last attack against Raheny, they were going out. And there was a real sense in Parnell Park that Kilmacud are about to get knocked out here at the semi-final stage. Like unbelievable scenes. And they found a way. Glen haven't had that life or death moment yet in the championship. They've had it pretty easy in Derry, apart from obviously the Slaughtneil game, like the final against O'Donovan Ross, Maher felt they just never got going. But then, like, Cargan gave them a right good go in the quarterfinal, and we're quite unlucky. Like Tomas Buchanan's red card did look harsh enough, and Glen didn't really impress in that game. But to be honest, they won't care. They'll know deep down inside that they can do better than that. They'll know that they can perform better than that. So I still probably would put Glen number 2. Number 3, I'll surprise people here. I'm going Scottstown number 3. I really think like Matthew was kind of the one who Matthew has converted me into believing in Scottstown. I've been swayed. Like he was talking to me about it, and he was saying, because I'll hold my hands up, I did think Kilcoo would beat Scottstown. And
Me too, yeah.
And he said, well, why do you think why do you think it's so simple that Kilmacud will win? Look at Scottstown's team. And I had looked at it, but it was only when he read them out so kind of emotionless, like Conor McCarthy, Jack McCarran, Rory Beggan, Kieran Hughes, Darren Hughes, Ryan O'Toole. I was like, that's a lot of quality Monaghan footballers there in that team. And now that they've beaten Kilmacud, who were one of the favourites to go and win the whole thing, why can't Scottstown go and win the whole thing? Especially the fact that like they're against Trillick, who I do rate highly now. Trillick are a dangerous team to come up against. But I'd probably say they're my top three.
Yeah, like do you know what? Like, do you know what the thing is with Scottstown? Like, I remember a couple of years ago looking at their team and thinking, unbelievable team. A lot of their lads were in their prime, and I was thinking at some point surely they have to make the breakthrough because they were so dominant in Monaghan for so long. And then every time coming into Ulster, they might have had the odd result here and there, but they just couldn't get over the line. And I was just thinking, when they get to Ulster, they just can't seem to deliver, whether it's because they're putting too much into Monaghan. We all know what it means, or, you know, or I suppose, we don't know what it means, obviously, to win senior county titles, but we've seen so many teams down the years win county titles, go into their provincial championship, and I suppose they just can't, you know, flatter to deceive in many ways. And I was looking at that with Scottstown again, but at the same time, no one's ever denying the talent and players that they have, as you said, and the likes of Rory Beggan, Conor McCarthy, Kieran Darren Hughes, Ryan O'Toole. Like, they've so many inter-county quality footballers, and you know, like the spine of that Monaghan team was there, and Monaghan were in an All-Ireland semi-final this year, let's not forget as well. So yeah, I would look to Scottstown and think, you know, I think they probably will have enough to get through Trillick. I think Trillick will be a very tough test for them, don't get me wrong, but I think the idea of them and Glen in the final of Ulster will be an absolute cracking game. And like, we're talking about tests, we're talking about big games. That's about as tough as it gets for a Watty Graham's Glen or for a Scottstown. And to be honest with you, like it'll be interesting to see how this weekend's games go. But like, if Scottstown go out and put in a dominant performance, and Glen, who, as we said, have looked again, it nearly looks like Glen are waiting until their peak a little bit. They're waiting until they, you know, hit that Ulster final, semi-final, and then they'll click into their best. But I wouldn't be too far away from predicting a Scottstown win there, you know. If they get through Trillick, I wouldn't be at all surprised if they did win a Connacht championship. So I think putting them at 3 is not a bad show.
Yeah. How far are we going down? All the way to the bottom?
Yeah, well, I suppose, yeah. We'll see. We'll see. We obviously won't spend too much time on.
I'll go a quick one. So you tell me, do you have the list of them up?
I have them all here, yeah.
Okay, so I will try and do them out genuinely off the top of my head. So 1, Kilmacud Crokes. 2, Watty Graham's Glen. 3, Scottstown. 4, Corofin. 5, Trillick. 6, Clonmel Commercials. 7, St. Brigid's. 8, Nave Cunnell. 9, Nace. 10, Dingle. 11. Well, 12 is Rathgormack. Who's 11? Who am I missing?
Who's 11? Who are you missing? You're missing Castlehaven, I think. Did you say that?
Castlehaven. Oh, Castlehaven are good.
Castlehaven at 11. I don't think Matthew will be happy with that.
No, I just forgot about Castlehaven. I would put Castlehaven up a bit further.
Yeah, to be fair, it's tough. It's tough to do right off the spot.
Castlehaven above Nave Cunnell.
Fair. And would you really have Dingle at 10, or was that, or did they slip your mind as well?
I don't know. Because Dingle got absolutely smoked by Mid-Kerry. And I had a look through the Mid-Kerry team, and there wasn't actually that many county lads in that team. So, like, how high would you put Dingle? I'd be maybe putting them above Clonmel Commercials and St. Brigid's. I think from St. Brigid's at 6 down to, honestly, not Castlehaven, down to Dingle at then 11 if Castlehaven were to jump above them. I think that's all fairly
Hmm.
interchangeable.
Yeah, like I don't think there's a lot between. I don't think there's much between a lot of those teams. Like I do think at the same time though, like with Mid Kerry, I do think they're a lot better probably than people maybe think or anticipate. Like they nearly beat East Kerry as well. Like they gave them a good rally in the final. In fairness, and I know they
I
completely
would
wiped
say
the
this. I
floor with
would say
Dingle.
this about my rankings. I'd say Kilmacud, Glen, Scottstown, Corofin, they're top four, and then I think there's a bit of a step down then to the next, and
Hmm.
then from Trillick, St. Brigid's, Castlehaven, Clonmel, Dingle, I think they're all nice. I think they're all in together, and then I think Rathcormac are a step below them as well.
Yeah, like I'd probably have Corofin at 3, just because, as I said before, there's been numerous times in the last couple of years where I've seen Scottstown and Ulster and they just haven't performed. They seem like a very inconsistent team in the Ulster Club Championship at the best of times. They have the players, they have the talent, don't get me wrong, but the consistency in performances I don't think have always been there. And that's the thing, is like I need to see a bit more from Scottstown, a bit more consistency, I think. And look, this weekend's the perfect game to do it. And to be fair, I would fancy them to go out and beat Trillick. But at the same time, it wouldn't surprise me either if they got turned over. Yeah, I think at number four, I would have Scottstown. Then number 5, I think St. Brigid's. I would have a 5. Again, I suppose as we said before, like I don't think we can sleep on St. Brigid's totally. And yeah, I think I would probably have them at number 5 as well. I suppose number 6, probably Trillick maybe. 7.
Every time I picked against them,
Yeah.
they win.
Yeah. And you know what the thing is as well, is that Tyrone clubs don't tend to do too well in the Ulster Championship in the past sort of, 10, 15 years or so as well. But obviously that win against Crossmaglen, like that was a huge, huge result. I do think Clonmel Commercials though, like I'd probably have them at 7, to be honest with you, which might be a little bit higher maybe than other people might expect. But like that match against Dingle this weekend is going to be a huge test to really see, are they, because we all remember them last year obviously turning over Nemo Rangers. They obviously lost to Newcastle West, which was a huge surprise and a huge shock. But if they can go and turn Dingle over, like they again, we're talking about dark horses. I don't think Clonmel are a million miles off either.
Yeah, no, I think they're good. And the fact is as well that they've put right the wrongs of last year. They beat Newcastle West 2 weekends ago. So they've put right those wrongs. And yeah, the Dingle game will tell us a lot.
Yeah, I think
Because
so.
with Dingle, I was very confident in them at the start of the year, but just seeing how they got annihilated by Mid Kerry, I'm just like, how is their heads going into this game? Like, do they believe in themselves? Are they as confident as they were before that game?
Yeah. It's going to be interesting, all right. Like, I suppose, yeah, like looking further down the chain, obviously, like Saracco Ormick, I think are, at the bottom. But I think we all agree pretty much that Kilmacud Crokes, number 1, Glen, number 2, 3 and 4, probably interchangeable. But I think we're probably looking at it, and those 4 sides that we mentioned, like, they probably are, like, Crokes and Glen seem a bit, a bit above the rest anyway. Like, again, if Scottstown go out and put in a top performance against Trillick, we could maybe change our minds. But haven't seen what Glen have done last season and so far at times this year in terms of results. Maybe the performances haven't been there, but they have looked very, I suppose we know what they can do, obviously, when they get to this stage of the season, in fairness. We'll look at some results from the Hurling Club Championships at the weekend, and Ballygunner, big result for them against Na Piarsaigh in the Munster semi-finals, 16 points to 1-9. Pádraig Mahony with 11 points on the day, just 3 scores for Na Piarsaigh. Not the best game, to be honest with you. What was it, 6 points to 5 at half time? It wasn't it 7-6? I mean, it wasn't a great game, really, to be honest.
Yeah, a bit disappointing, but it was a bit of an arm wrestle this game, more so than a pure technical brilliance. Look, Ballygunner found a way to win, and that's what they've been doing now for the last couple of years. It feels like they went from being a team with potential to a team that delivers. I feel like there's nothing that can stop them now. I genuinely mean this. I like Luke was talking about it with me on my pod there, on our pod there, like an hour ago. We were saying like we would have probably put the Piercy down as the top team that could stop Ballygunner, and now especially that Ballyhale Shamrocks are gone. Now that the Piercy are gone, I personally think Clonlara will put up a good fight in the Munster final, but I don't think they'll beat Ballygunner. And then who stops them? Thomas's, Slough-Neil, or whoever comes out of Leinster. Like, I'm not dismissing Cushendall. I just think Slough-Neil will probably get the win there. And I'm kind of painting what I think the future will be. I think it will probably be a Final Four of either O'Loughlin Gales or Nafina against, Ballygunner, Slough-Neil and St. Thomas's. And then who do you tip out of those four? It's definitely Ballygunner. So the fact that they've got through this is huge. And the way that they just looked that little bit better is massive for them. Pádraig Mahoney, 11 points, outstanding display. It's still the same team. Like, that's one thing that we need to discuss is like, it's the same team that they put out last year. It's the same substitutions that they're making. It's a team that's very much knows each other inside out. And the forward line that they have, like the Mahoneys, Desi Hutchinson, Patrick Fitzgerald, it's just an outrageous forward line for a club team to have. And then at the back, like they really did a good job on Peter Casey. Connor Boylan didn't really get into the game either. And they just never really let Piercy get into the groove. Like a goal and 9 looks like a low score for half time in hurling nowadays, let alone full time. So Ballygunner's defence was outstanding. They did have a bit of a scary moment when Stephen O'Keefe kind of had to flick it off the line late, but overall they were no doubt the better team. And that's why I honestly see it very, very unlikely that anybody stops them winning the All-Ireland.
Yeah, I think so as well. Like, I mean, I still think there'll be some close games in there. I still think there'll be some moment. I think we do see this so often where for Ballygunner, like it looks, not that it looks so easy, but like at this stage, it's very, very hard to bet against them, especially when as you said, you do look at the teams that are left. They've beaten the Piershig now. To play Clonlara in the Munster final. Obviously, Clonlara have had a bit of a fairy tale year themselves, getting through Clare, and obviously here they are now in a Munster final. And then obviously you're looking at the sides that come through Leinster, as you said, Nafina, first time they've ever come through Dublin. O'Loughlin Gales, first time they've come through Kilkenny in a good couple of years as well. And look, it's all set up for Ballygunner, but at the same time, I feel like the only thing that could let them down is some sort of complacency. Or there's a team out there like Kilcormac or someone out there that we're all writing off who could maybe cause a shock and might be a lot better than what we think. Maybe Clonlara might be a lot better than what we think. Like this is the brilliance of club championships, because you look at a team like Clonlara, and obviously first time they came through Clare, I think in what was it? I don't know how long. It was definitely a good while. We don't know really how good they are. 2010. We don't really know how good actually they are. Do you know what I mean? But you would look at Ballygunner and you would surely have to imagine they're strong enough, because we know what they can do. And when we look at the teams that are left and the players that are left of the different clubs, it looks, it looks straightforward enough.
Well, that's it. And it's like with Clonlara, when you're looking at it from their perspective, Kildangan were down to 13 men and Clonlara still made a meal out of beating them. Like Kildangan were 2 points clear in the 3rd minute of additional time and somehow managed to throw the game away, and Clonlara managed to get the victory with a last minute winner. So against 13 men. So it's like, is a team that makes a meal like that out of beating the Kildangan side who were reduced to 13 men and they have to get it in the last minute. Look, absolutely all the credit in the world for them for never giving up and for going until the last second. But I don't think you'll beat Ballygunner by that, because Ballygunner won't get their lads sent off, I don't think. And it is a difficult one. And look, you're right, we don't know exactly how good they are, because Ballyea have had that lockdown in Clare for the last few years. And now this is kind of Clonlara's first time out. John Conlon, believe it or not, is actually the only guy who was involved in the 2010 team to still be involved in this team now. So all these lads are fresh into this team. They've never played at this level before, and they've never played against a side like a Ballygunner before. And like if Ballyea and all those teams were getting out into Munster and they couldn't get past Ballygunner, I'm not too confident that Clonlara can get past them at the first time of asking. So I do think Ballygunner will win. It's difficult though. And I like write them off of John Perrill because they have the type of players like John Conlon, like Ian Galvin, like Colin Galvin, who are capable of unbelievable performances. And I do agree with you. I think the only thing that catches Ballygunner is Ballygunner themselves. If Ballygunner go into a game and take their eye off the ball, they could be knocked out just the same way Ballyhale Shamrocks were. You look at it a few years ago, that will be a close one. Like that's what we're talking about, that this weekend will tell us a lot about both of those teams' chances going forward. But when you look at, say, Ballygunner, like Luke pointed out this, the year that they actually won it, Slaughtneil gave them the fright of their lives in the semi-final. And to this day, Slaughtneil will look back at that game and say, we should have won that game. So Ballygunner have to stay the course and they have to keep their heads in the game. Otherwise, they won't win. Because how many times have there been favourites for club championships and then they've been knocked out of nowhere? So I would say Ballygunner are favourites, but I stand by that. The only team that can beat Ballygunner is Ballygunner themselves.
Yeah, no, I think so as well. Like I'm kind of clutching at straws ever so slightly. Like they're by far and away the favourites anyway. Make no mistake about that. You mentioned obviously the other semi-final there. That was Clonlara, 23 points, Killadangan 119. As you said, they got through by the absolute skin of their teeth. John Conlon with 4 points and Keen Galvin or Colm Galvin, Ian Galvin, all getting on the score sheet as well. Getting on the score sheet as well. Both Galvins. But what was your thoughts anyway on Clonlara pulling through?
As I said, I thought I was impressed with their fighting spirit, and I was impressed with the fact that they kept going until the final moment. But if you look at it, they hit a truckload of wides, and they weren't clinical, and it did take right until the last minute for them to wake up and realize that this is slipping away from them. Diarmaid Stritch with the last minute winner, great score, and look, Killadangan getting 2 lads sent off definitely helped their cause. Like, let's not beat around the bush here. Like if it was 15 lads from Killadangan on the field, it would have been a lot harder to come back into the game in the last couple of minutes the way they did. Billy Seymour was outstanding for Killadangan, 11 points from him, brilliant individual display. As for Clonlara, John Conlon hit 4 points in play. He was magnificent. He is the key man in this team. Like he's the captain of this team. I know he might not be, but he is the captain. He's the most experienced guy in that team, and he's the leader. The Galvins are hugely important as well. Like, look, as I said, they're in uncharted territory. Killadangan haven't really been here either because of the Tipperary Championship they won was the COVID year, so they didn't really get to go out and give Munster a crack. So they'll be disappointed that it has ended this way. They fought so hard to get past Turles Sarsfields in the Tipperary final, and then they've gone out immediately. But I do think we are looking at a situation where Ballygunner are clear favourites going into the final. I think Ballygunner will win by about 5 in the final, especially if they beat Napiershig by 4.
Yeah, like and if Ballygunner can turn it on and they're at their best, you could probably see them winning by more. Like remember when they played Ballyea 2-3 years ago and they absolutely hammered them,
It was the same. Like, Kilmacud was the one where I was like, wow. Kilmacud in 2021/22, I think it was late 21, they played them and they just absolutely annihilated them.
Yeah, like that's the thing. Like Ballygunner do have that, and like I suppose they've already got it out of their systems by how comfortably they beat Sarsfields earlier in the year, a couple of weeks ago. But yeah, like they have that potential, like to just absolutely rip a team to shreds, and show no mercy. Ulster semi-final, Rory O'Cushinall, 4 goals, 28 points, Portaferry 319 after extra time. Sounds like an absolute cracker this game. Neil McManus, a goal and 14 points. I was seeing a couple of reels doing the rounds on Instagram of a couple of late points that he scored and stepping up and doing the business. Huge win for Rory Oak. Didn't see much of the game, but sounds like a cracking game anyways, but it looks of it.
Yeah, like Neil McManus is as clutch a player as you will find. Like this guy is clutched up time and time again. Even one example that I always love was when he came on in the Joe McDonough final a couple of years ago against Kerry. He came on as a substitute. the first thing he did was strike over a brilliant score at a crucial stage of the game and to settle Antrim down again. Like, this guy is just, if you need someone to pop up with a crucial score at a crucial stage, Neil McManus is one of the top guys to do that and has been his entire career. Like, with the last shot of normal time, he blasts it off the ground and it skids up straight into net like a rocket. Brilliant shot. That sent the game to extra time. Like, make no mistake about it, Cushendall got out of jail here. Portaferry were fantastic in normal time. Niall Milligan hit 2 goals. Owen Sands was brilliant. Owen Sands got the other goal in normal time. 3 points up with the last puck of the game. Neil McManus has to go for it. He goes for it. He gets it into extra time. In extra time, Cushendall got their second goal. Joe McLaughlin got 2. Alex Delargy fired home another goal. So that made it the 4 goals. And look, they ran away with it in extra time. Like, make no mistake about it. I think if we're being honest, Portaferry were so deflated by the fact that they felt like they might have missed their chance to beat them that, look, Cushendall just ran away with it in extra time. But, like, make no mistake about it, they know they got out of jail there. And going into this final now against Slough-Neil, they know they're going to have to do a lot better than that in normal time, or there will be no opportunity for Neil McManus to save them this time.
Yeah, like, is it, like, how many times down the years, like in Gaelic football, hurling, camogie, ladies football, like, have we seen late goals go in to level a match, and usually the team who gets the 11, the late goal is usually the team to go on and win in extra time, because if it is demoralising for the other team, it is such a sucker punch. It feels like they've lost and they have to regroup and obviously get better and sort of get back to business. I feel like Armagh Galway from a couple of years ago was the only game I can think of where the other team actually went on still to win, and even by that, it was after a penalty shootout. So
I think that's because all the momentum Armagh had, they took out on the fight with the goal. Coming out of the tunnel.
Yeah, fair. It was about 20 minutes or something of a wait before the extra time started.
Well, that's it. It felt like, because of the delays in kicking off the extra time, it felt like a completely new game when the extra time kicked off.
Yeah. I suppose, yeah.
Cork Kilkenny is the only other example I can think of. Cork Kilkenny in 2021. Remember, I think, who was it? Was it Adrian Mullen who got that goal?
Yeah, you're right, actually. That's another.
Yeah, I just remember Diarmuid O'Sullivan coming running off the touchline being like, get it. Like, going crazy. And then Cork came out and won the extra time.
Yeah. No, and mad to think as well, like, especially with Kilkenny, like, getting that late goal, like, you'd always envisage them, and it's such a Cork thing probably to happen as well, to see the late goal and then go on to lose, but obviously wasn't meant to be. Rory Oak then going up against Slough-Neil in the final. Obviously Slough-Neil were there 2 years ago. Rory Oak, as we know, they can pull off a surprise or two down the years as well, but I mean, it's who would you be tipping? Who would you be hanging your hat to go on and reach the All-Ireland semis?
Slightly leaning towards Slough-Neil in this game. I just feel like Cushendall there confused me a little bit. Like, beating Lockheed Shamrocks, I was like, okay, well done. Like, that's a hell of a victory. Beating a side that had hammered Dunloy, who reached the final last year, like, that was a real weird chain where I was convinced Dunloy were going to win. Then Lockheed hammered them, and I was thinking, okay, well, surely Lockheed win. Nope, Cushendall win instead. Like, that was a really weird chain of events, and I was surprised at how poor Cushendall looked for long periods against Portaferry. Look, Portaferry were fantastic. Like, give them a shout out to that. The Sands brothers were brilliant in particular, and Niall Milligan too, obviously, with those 2 goals. But they'll have to up their level big time, or else Slough-Neil will beat them and beat them comfortably. So I will go to lean towards Slough-Neil to take this.
Yeah, I'll edge towards them as well, I think. But as we've seen in Ulster, look, I don't think many people expected Portaferry to put up such a battle as they did. But there you go. So yeah, look, it would be interesting to see that game, obviously, when it comes around, and certainly there'll be plenty of previews and all the rest out in the next couple of weeks or so. Suppose club moment of the week, maybe, before finishing up. I don't think I've done one of these in a while, but it just came to me there. So what do you think?
Moment of the week, yeah, and you caught me off guard with it too. We'll have to flick through.
I caught myself off guard a little bit.
You're thinking about it as well.
It just popped into my brain.
Club moment of the week. Difficult one. Very difficult. I would probably say Clonairin beating Breda in the Ulster final in the LGFA. Probably say that. Or actually Dixborough beating Vincent's in the Leinster Camogie final. That was the end of the Vincent's era there in Leinster. If you're talking men's side, I'd probably say men's side, I would probably say Nace beating Lomans in extra time. Brilliant game. Derek Kieran.
Yeah.
I know it's not a moment per se. Or actually, no. Neil McManus. Is that's my goal.
There we go. I was gonna say that one, but there we go. Yeah,
I read your mind.
I think so. I think you were reading already what I had up in the brain, but yeah, Neil McManus like all. I don't think you can necessarily go against that, or even Milltown beating Fossa maybe in the junior Kerry final. I think Fossa, as far as I read, were massive favourites for obvious reasons. But they obviously didn't get through, so they won't be playing senior football next year. Just a word on that, actually. Like, I reckon I was seeing on Twitter, like, a lot of Kerry fans are actually very happy with Fossa losing, just with the fact that it now means David Clifford, Paddy Clifford, they're all going to get a break now, a significant break between now and the intercounty season. Like, they might play a couple of league games here and there. I don't know if there'll be any league games in December, but like they obviously won't be playing any club football now between now and the rest of the year. So could be a positive for Kerry for next year.
Yeah, and they'd always get a break if they didn't have that weird divisional 2 club championships at the same time. Then they get a break every year. So I think that's the way to guarantee them getting a break every year. Maybe especially with the fact that Cairns made it very clear that they weren't happy. The fact that they've now got relegated. Austin Stacks were the same. They got relegated after being champions the year before. So, I think it's a good thing for Kerry that Fossa got knocked out. It's a terrible thing for the rest of the country that Fossa got knocked out, because now we will probably see David and Paddy Clifford at their best. I think David looked absolutely fatigued to bits in that All-Ireland final against Dublin. I think he just looked tired. I think he looked like a man who'd been playing Gaelic football non-stop for 2 years. And he looked like a man who needed a break, especially with everything that he had personally gone through and carried on his shoulders and all that expectation. So personally, I'm thrilled for his general well-being that he gets a break.
Yeah, I think so. And look, if any man deserves a break, I think it's definitely him. It definitely is him. And look, even as a Dublin fan, we want to see players at their best. And to be fair to Clifford,
here's the other thing as well. Like, I mean, make no bones about it. He's a Kerry footballer, and the Dublin Kerry rivalry is, in my opinion, the El Clasico of Gaelic games. Like, we coined it as that, coming up to the final this year. But like, he's an absolute gentleman. Like, he's such a lovely bloke. Like, you see it in every interview that he does. He's just a nice guy, and yeah, I'm delighted for him that he gets somewhat of a break. And that he got Footballer of the Year as well, obviously.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, no, I do agree. In fairness, and look, I mean, he was unbelievable this year. In fairness, and imagine how much better now he could be with a break. But sometimes that's how injuries can come, when you take a break for a while and then come back. So hopefully, anyways, he touch wood, everything's okay going into the new season. Suppose we'll go ahead and wrap this up here. Make sure to check out Seamus's podcast on Clihe, obviously doing his own club review show as well. And for anyone who tuned in, hit the like button, subscribe if you haven't already, and we will see you all later.